friends, thank you so much for tuning in today, taking some time out of your day to be with me. I will say this summer I've really been getting more intentional about my eyeshadow looks, really thinking about what kind of look I'm going to put together, just taking a little more interest in the eyes after I feel like complexion has really dominated my thoughts lately. I've been having more fun with my eye looks day to day, even when I'm not shooting a video. I'm considering what I can do to make an eye look fun. I've had those glittery sticks from ColourPop. I've been working those into looks. It's been a good time, and then boom, Morphe drops the most basic of the basic, which is still fun for me, let me say. I love blending matte shadows, but they've got 3 new matte palettes, and I knew when those came in I had to start playing with those and figuring out what I thought about them. It seems like not all that long ago Morphe really revamped their whole eyeshadow sector with larger palettes, medium palettes. They've even got some smaller palettes. Along with this launch, they've launched some trios as well, which I'm in the process of working with, and these are not all matte. They're like 2 mattes and a pop, so to be continued on those. But whereas before these 6-pan palettes had some shimmery pops, these new ones that I'm focusing on today are all matte. We have one called Tailored Nudes, which is going to be your warm leaning matte palette. We have Underslated, which is cool, and you probably want to see those side by side just to see how big the warm cool difference is between those two. And then the third one, and the one I'm wearing today, and we'll have a little tutorial on for today, is the mauve one, Mauve Mode, okay? So in this video, you are going to see a full how-to on this eye look, and I do feel that the mauve palette, you know, it's very representative of what the other palettes are giving you in terms of the application. Like, how intense is the darkest shade? How well do they blend? My experience with the mauve definitely is consistent with my experiences with the other two that you won't see a video on, but you will see some looks that I've done. But yeah, that is coming in this video. But these are $16 palettes, all right? Now, you put this in the context of, oh, Patrick Ta does a lot of like all matte stuff. This is a better deal compared to those. Absolutely. But then also you could think about the fact that there are smaller, like bite-sized palettes from LA Colors or e.l.f. Both of those lines offer a few all matte quads, and they would be a fraction of the price of this. Granted, less cutesy packaging, no mirror, 2 less shades, but still, it's not like these are the only option out there. If you can get your hands on Maybelline City Mini palettes, you know, here we're talking 6 shades. They have that all matte Skyscape Dust, but those are a little harder to come by. And then we can't fail to mention the ColourPop Gone Matte palette. If you're seeing all these and think, I wouldn't be able to choose, I want to have the mauves and the cool shades and the warm shades, then you need to be thinking about the ColourPop Gone Matte palette. I've been talking about this guy for years. $35, I believe it is, and you're going to get a total matte neutral wardrobe here with the warm pops, with the purpley mauvey kinds of shades, with all the classic neutrals. Light to dark balance is completely there. I love the way it's sorted out. And if you were going to get 2 of these, it'd be $32, but you're going to get that whole palette for $35. So if you like everything here, if you wanted to buy 3 of these, it would be $48. So just sorting things out, giving you the lay of the land right now. However, is the quality great? Yes, it is. If you've tried Morphe's other palettes that are packaged this way, you may have noticed the mattes are really good, really consistent. You're not going to run into like a deep dark one that's somehow unblendable. Like, everything works together really, really well. The mattes are probably the most consistent thing, because sometimes you will hit like a shimmery shade where it's like, okay, that one you got to pop on with your finger, or you got to be prepared for a little dustiness or something. I mean, generally speaking, they're really good, but Morphe will kind of step outside the box of just what we know to be classic creamy shimmers. Think Sydney Grace. They'll do some little bit different things, and some shades might be more glazy, a little less intense, or a little more sparkly. But the mattes are very consistent, very easy to work with. My job has been easy on all 3 of these palettes. Just getting a shade on, even if it's a dark shade, and I might get more than I thought I was going to get. Then you go to blend it out. It's not like it's just stuck there. It's able to be blended. This look came together. Like, I love the artwork, particularly on this mauve palette. It's so like soft, and that's the vibe I really get out of all of these, is just that everything merges in with each other. And I think think they did a great job in all the palettes of giving us nice balance. I love that I'm looking at this palette, this Tailored Nudes, and I'm seeing rich darkness, okay? A really nice classic dark brown, a little warmer and lighter dark brown, a couple of mid-tones, one a little deeper than the other, a light shade, and your rusty warmth there. This was the first palette I used, and I love the look. Like, no complaints. It's very easy to set up. I think it's easy for me to glance at a 6-pan palette and think, okay, I pretty much know how I'm going to use this one. And I know I'll mention this in the tutorial, but don't feel like you have to use every shade, every color in a 6-pan palette. You could easily use 2 and get a great everyday look. You could pop in 3 and be fine. In the tutorial today, like, I bounce around a little bit. I'm trying different things, but you don't have to use every part of this to even get a completed and finished look. The range is so nice. So, like, the 2 main things I like about these palettes best are the blendable nature of the mattes and just the ease of use, but also how well balanced the palette is. Light to dark, you could get a really intense look with this, or you could get something super soft and easy. So I really like this warm one. Number one, I think I'm a little more drawn to warm tones than cool, but this guy right here, this is that fiery shade that can just bump it up a notch. You could use a lot of it, you could use a little of it. How much heat goes in the look, I mean, it's up to you, but that color gives you the chance to do it. And I really don't think you even need to see swatches of everything. Like, they're all what you see is what you get here. I mean, I dip my finger in, you're getting completely full color. Every swatch I do is going to just entirely echo the shade that I dipped into. But I love that warm one. It's probably like my number 2 favorite. The cool one is nice too. This is called Underslated. This makes me think of vertical blinds when I look at the outside. This lid and the ombre, I don't know, it makes me think of some kind of 80s decor. And this is very, very classic. They're giving you straight up pure black in this one. That's a real true black. You're getting dark brown. You're getting a couple of mid-tones here. You're getting a gray, and you're getting essentially a white, maybe just off of white. And by the way, the light shades in these palettes completely hold their own. They are really capable of having just the same level of intensity. They can really hang in there with the dark shades that they're side by side with. But it's a great palette. If you want the most basic color scheme, if you are building an eyeshadow wardrobe from nothing and you want good quality, just the basics, this might be a good place to start. For me, as one who has a lot of makeup, a lot of different things, these are shades that I own a lot of and I see a lot of. But I will say it's becoming more and more rare to turn out a small palette that's just going to straight up give you black, you know? That's not quite as common anymore. But I love that they didn't shy away from darkness in these. And keep in mind, those dark shades can act like liners. You could absolutely execute a killer smoky eye with that, but then see the difference. See the overall warmth possibility kicking up here. Color choices are just awesome. But then you've got this mauve one, and this might be the one where I'm like, looking at everything else I have, this one stands out to me a little bit more. This one feels a little bit more unique. And this is the color spread here. Still giving us darkness. I worked in the darkest shade today, and I was very impressed with that. And then, you know, a couple of depth levels on pinky mauve. I would say this is the most classic mauve shade in there. One shade going a little more pinky. Then we've got some beige, a nice dusty grayish color, and then your lightest shade here. So everything was so smooth, so easy to work with. The haze on the lid really echoes the ease with which you can take one shade into the next, and it's like seamless. You can really make them blend so easily. This one is my favorite, but I feel like I'm basing that solely off of my personal shade preferences because the quality is there with all of them, and the shade range is so nice with all of them. But as I said, $16. $16 is nothing. And Morphe is kind of drugstore, but in a sense, a lot of things feel a little bit higher. So do you feel comfortable paying that for a 6-pan palette? I think you will love the quality, you will love the shade range, but if you're looking at getting 2 or more of these, unless the convenience factor and size is super important to you, the better value might be to get the ColourPop Gone Matte palette, because that's another beautiful matte texture with a great wardrobe, tons of variety, and even more shades than you're going to get here. Just something to think about. But before we get into the how-to with the mauve palette, I want to tell you what's on my face today. Today I used a primer. It's Catrice Soft Glam Foam Primer because I'm like, I haven't used this lately. Let's do it. It really feels like a lightweight moisturizer. It's fun to pump out foam, but it's no big deal, you know. My foundation is Nude by Nature N2 Classic Beige. It's their Perfect Skin Filter Foundation, and I do really like this stuff. Paired in also their Nude by Nature Concealer, Anti-Aging Correcting Concealer in Eggshell. So I've got that on my under eyes, little around my nose too. I think it did a great job. I set with some Coty Airspun, and then I had noticed in the past that it was a really good look when I took the Nude by Nature Loose Powder Foundation and lightly topped the liquid with the powder so that I have in C3 Light. So that's the complexion, and then we start bumping things up with a little color. Grabbed out one of my Morphe Shape Shifter sticks, or Shape Lifter sticks, sorry. I think the shade name is called Enhanced, and it's a really nice soft kind of cool color, but that did my contouring here and around my hairline, and then I'm like, okay, that's good. It blends easily. I like to use those, but I thought let's bump up the bronze slightly. So I pulled in this bronzer that I cannot stay away from, Caramel Truffle from CoverGirl. Blush of the day is Willa from Benefit. Just because I was knowing I was going to go into the mauve on the eyes, I think of this as mauve, but it's a more pinky mauve. And then you might notice I've got the softest looking highlight ever. They call this stuff a soft glow veil, and you could wear it all over for like a really natural little added glow, but I feel like I can get a little more out of it when I apply it with my Real Techniques setting brush just right on top of the cheeks. Isn't that so pretty? I really enjoy that look. And then for brows today, it was the Morphe Micro Brow Pencil in Java and the Maybelline Super Lock in Deep Brown. And then that'll take you straight into the eye look today, and also the lips when that's done. So I've just applied my e.l.f. Lock It Down eye primer on both of my eyelids, and I just kind of, you know, tap it through the crease and up to the brow bone. And then it's this Morphe palette today, Mauve Mode, one of 3 new matte palettes. Here's a look at the inside. Yep, what you see is what you get, just pure matte colors. I feel like we've got practically 4 potential mid-tones, a deep shade, and a lighter shade as well. I'm going to start off with this one up here. It seems like it's got the most vibrant color out of anything, and I think that might be pretty, just kicking things off in my crease and letting it blend up above. See that? It's blending really easily. I felt like I had a decent amount on my brush when I started. I need to tap off just a little excess when I go in. I've been using a lot of Sydney Grace shadows lately, and I feel like the mattes in here are kind of similar. I mean, it's just like maybe one tap off will do it, but they do kick up just a little bit of powder, which isn't a problem, you know? I want my shadow to have a little softness. Remember ABH shadows from a long time ago? I'm talking about like the modern Renaissance palette days and Subculture and stuff like that, where you had to be so soft with your brush tapping in because you would just create mounds of excess shadow. Okay, so I've lightly put this shade in my crease, and now I'm thinking what hazes out from that a little bit more. Maybe some of this shade next door, which looks like kind of a soft, just kind of medium beige. It's probably not a whole lot lighter actually than the pinky color, but we're just playing a little bit, trying to see what they'll do. I do feel like that kind of softened out the look a bit. I want to add just a little more of that shade, so I tapped in and now I'm building just a bit in the outside. Personally, I was kind of wondering if these palettes might have been a response to like what Patrick Todd's doing. A lot of people love his mattes, and this would be kind of a lower cost way to pick one of several neutral matte wardrobes. Kind of want to see a little bit of this one mixed in too, because in terms of what's really mauve in this palette, I think we've got this, and then this is a really deep kind of, I think, cool brownish mauve. I'm gonna go in here before I come to my darkest shade. I feel like this one might be a little bit deeper than the top corner shade that I first put in my crease. And we can just blend it in there. Just a little. A 6-pan palette is a nice size, and you really don't have to use every shade in a 6-pan palette to do a complete looking eye look, you know? Sometimes I will bounce into more shades than I really need to, just in the name of experimenting and just kind of wondering what they'll do. You know, you could easily complete a look with 2 or 3 shades. But I'm taking my Morphe M303 now into that darkest shade. I really want to see like what this translates to on the eyes. Will it be exactly what you see is what you get? Will it be softer or deeper than I think I'm gonna get? So I'm patting that all over like the outer half of my lid. Really nice. I love that color. It's kind of unique, actually. The fact that it's got some mauve, it comes off kind of plummy, I would say, on the eyes. In the scope of a mauve palette, I immediately said like mauve mixed with brown is the vibe. But as I apply it, I'm really getting that plummy feel. Oh, I love blending mattes. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Blending matte shadows can be downright therapeutic. The way they so smoothly come together, there's a real seamless nature to mattes. And I was just kind of entering sort of a fun era of my eyeshadow. Like I've been pulling in those ColourPop glittery stick things more often, and just in general being a little bit more intentional about what my eye look is day to day and having more fun with it. And then ColourPop drops 3 neutral matte palettes, but you know, it's a fun contrast on the days you're not doing glitter or color. Here I feel like I am getting soft color, which is nice. Look at that. The way that depth blended in, and then I find myself just taking my crease brush and making sure everything is kind of nicely merged together. Going back in, is there anything left on that flat brush? Really hit that crease. Love. And then how do you go about finishing this look? I would take a shade like this, one of the mid-tony colors that's definitely lighter than your darkest shade, and you know, let that kind of do center of the lid and touch your darkest color. And then we'll use that lightest one to come inward. Clean off the brush right here, because I like to see how pigmented the light shade is too. Oh yeah, really holding its own. Just patting that on the innermost part of the lid and letting it overlap with the medium shade. That's where that smoothness, like you can get brightness, dimension. It doesn't have to be shimmery. Just a second, Rosie. And then I might just take, this is my Morphe M332 eye blender, but it's kind of like smaller. Just a little bit of that. And just let that come up directly under the brow. I'm not relying on that to really help me blend anything, although it could help. Last but not least on this eye look, I'm going to my darkest shade, but with a smaller, more controlled brush. This is my Profusion small pointed brush, and you bet I want to see that shade coming down here on the at least the outer part of the lower lash line. That's where the most product's gonna go. You wouldn't wanna take your loaded up brush and just pop it here, okay? Where you put your brush first is where the most product goes. So I generally like to see kind of a fade from out to in on intensity on the lower lash line. So whatever's left on the brush, you know, less and less is there, and that kind of fades inward. One little tap in. Really like the texture of these. Morphe's matte texture really doesn't make me work too hard, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you might get a little more or a little less on your brush at one point in time, and it doesn't really matter. The shadows blend seamlessly one into the next. It makes my job easy. Really enjoying the tones in this palette. I'm picking up just a little bit of the darkness to make sure I really got it where I wanted it, because really the whole top of the eye was created with just 2 brushes. The crease brush and the flat brush. I love that haziness. I mean, this might be my favorite one. I had a hunch that it would be. This is a star kind of color here for me. The depth, the soft plumminess. It's like the eye look is getting a little bit of color, but in the softest way possible. And that type of color also like does something a little bit transformative for my own eye color. Brings out a little bit of a greenish look, which I always like. So what I'm gonna do next, friends, I'm gonna do a little bit of liner across the top and mascara top and bottom, and I'll be back to show you the finished look. All right, we finished things off, and I went across my upper lash line with a shadow stick here from ABH, the glider shadow stick. The shade is Amethyst, and I've used this before, but I didn't realize how much sparkle was actually in this. So it's like the look is actually getting a little bit of glitter across that upper lash line. It's really pretty, actually. I'll show you. Maybe you can see it better in a swatch on my hand, because now that the mascara is on, it's kind of hard for this to pop, but like that is what's across my upper lash line right now. I think it's kind of cool. And then I used my Essence Lash Princess Sculpted Volume Mascara on my upper lashes and my e.l.f. Lash Extender on the lower lashes. And I love the way this look came together so much. And on my lips, to pair with this, I wanted to not go like too pinky or too berry. You know what I mean? I wanted a little richness, but I wanted to keep it still somewhat earthy, I guess. So I used my Ulta Beauty Weightless Water stain. This is a really pretty stain. It pretty much accounts for most of the color on my lips. Shade is Plum Paradise, and in case you're wondering, it is maybe just a hint thicker than e.l.f. stains. And then over top of that, I just used my little Burt's Bees stick here. It has a soft tint. It's called Misty Mauve. And that just gives me a little bit of that comfy, balmy feel, plus a hint of color. So just to wrap things up here, I think what Morphe did was really great with these mattes. Basic matte wardrobes. I think it's an excellent addition to their line. And I also think they did an awesome job within 6 shades to give us such a complete range of light and dark. There are so many palettes that I feel don't go dark enough and don't give us enough range. And here, with only 6 colors to work with, we can go from the lightest of the light to the darkest of the dark, and you've got everything in between to make it easy enough to blend things out and actually make it work in a user-friendly way. It's like you've got A to Z, but enough of the right shades in between were sprinkled in to make the path complete. For people who like warmth, that shade was critical in here, but then we also have the darkness, we also have the light midtones, and the mauve is just so much fun. I just feel an added bit of softness with this. And this shade right here, kind of unique. That soft, plummy mauviness, just an excellent color, and so many good supporting cast members there as well. So quality and shade selection are 10 out of 10. You just got to stop and think, is it worth it for me to spend $16 on these? Because yeah, if you just wanted a basic matte quad, you know, you could look to Cold Brew from e.l.f. What's the other one? I Love You a Latte, I think. They've got a couple matte quads, you know, LA Colors at Dollar Tree for $1.25. Do they have all the range of these? Not quite, but if you're sitting there watching this video thinking, I don't even know if I like mattes that much, that might be a place to start. And if you're really, really into mattes and thinking about buying all 3, just know that the ColourPop Gone Matte Palette is an excellent option. For people who really kind of have the collect 'em all mentality, remember when you'd see toy commercials as a kid and the way they'd always end the commercial was collect 'em all? I took that as my mission. You know, I always wanted all the Polly Pockets and all the Barbies. Didn't get them all, but you know, I wanted them all. I understand if you see all 3 of these and think, I like all those. And really, $48 isn't bad when you consider what many of us are paying for like one Too Faced large palette or one big Patrick Ta palette. So keep it all in context, right? But kudos to Morphe here. I like what's going on. Let me know your thoughts if you've tried any of these, and also to be continued on these little friends. They've got some trios that include 1 shimmer. I've got them all. They sent them along with these matte palettes. I've tried 2 so far. I've still got a few to go. I will say so far so good with what I've tried, but I've still got more to work with there. So thank you, my friends. I will see you again very soon. I love you. Bye.